Well, it seems like T1 fans will be eating well, which is no news to anyone because they have a lot of food to eat every year. So, there's been a new PBE dropped, and of course, with it, this time around, we got the T1 skins. But it turns out that while these are just your normal, regular world skins, Riot is trying something new. There is a new skin that dropped into middle of all of that. And all things considered, if we didn't know that these were T1 skins, one could mistake them for a Hall of Legends. And that would be a traumatic experience. But as you'll see, there are also some other aspects that these skins have borrowed from the Hall of Legends, namely the way one very specific skin is presented here. And after people figured out what was really happening here, the internet was turned into a battlefield. A battlefield that you can try to conquer with the help of today's sponsor. Are you a fan of sci-fi battles in a gorgeous stylized environment using the coolest made-up space tech? Well, Tyr might be the answer for you. This video is sponsored by Tyr. Tyr is a multiplayer tank shooter that allows you to live through your wildest sci-fi warfare fantasies. Here you are not just a pilot. You're an engineer with the ability to upgrade your machines with individual tech trees, with separate ammo slots and unique upgrades. Meaning you can end up with anything from the smallest scouts to the biggest tanks that also send out their own drones. And as you level up and progress through the game, the upgrades get even wilder. You can combine this with the fact that every tank has its own unique ability that can completely change the way you move around. Tired of sticking to the ground? Turn into a jet? And sure, it is fun when games become simulators of a genre. But it's even more fun when the game focuses on fun and crazy gameplay. And from that point on, it's all gonna go down to your ability to outmaneuver the enemy with good old military tactics. So try your sci-fi piloting skills in Tyr right now. Enjoy the free-to-play experience with no pay-to-win vehicles, ammo or consumables. And so you can find Tyr on Steam, add it to your wishlists, and join the free playtest that is live right now. Once again, many thanks to Tyr for sponsoring this video. So, while most people are gonna be here for the T1 skins, truth be told, there is another thing that we should also talk about, which also dropped with the same patch. Except on the live servers, Riot is trying a new thing, and now the last hitting indicator for minions can be enabled in normal and ranked games. And I believe you can imagine the kind of conversation this started. And personally, and I am probably gonna be in the minority based on what I saw on the internet, but I really don't think this is that big of a deal. And if anything, this might be hugely beneficial for the overall health of the game. I mean, yes, sure, last hitting is part of this game. But based on what Jinxie had shown us, Riot really needs to focus on bringing in newer people, and while all of those players are learning all the lanes and all the game mechanics and 170 different champions, I don't think it's a good idea to make them also guess how much is their estimated damage on a minion so they can make sure they last hit it based on their gear. Like look, I play support, there is a good reason why I do so, it's because I hate last hitting. So yes, I am biased against it, what about it? But also, keep in mind that the vast majority of the player base is in silver and below. People just try and hit a minion and hope it dies. And so what if Riot actually gave everyone an indicator that shows them, hey, if you hit them now, they die. Overall, it might actually be a really good update for the majority of the audience. Although Riot should keep in mind that with this, people will be able to get more gold in the game, which on the fun scale is not a bad thing. People like having gold and more items. But now the items might have to be tuned around it. But it might not even be a bad thing, because with more items, the games will be faster. And we all appreciate faster games. Anyway, enough talking about game mechanics, let's talk about our wallets. So T1 did it again, once again they are getting their world skins. But as we learned from Riot, skins are no longer the big thing that makes money anymore. They have to try other things, and so there is a new thing that the T1 fans will wanna get because it is really cool. And that is the T1 finisher. Now, you can tell that Riot had fun with this one, because the effects are really good. And that is from the very beginning, where you can see the World's Cup. Then you can see all the stars for the victories and the wings, which are part of the T1 aesthetics. After which the nameplate turns into a crown, because of course heavy is the crown. And in the background you can see the silhouette of the entire team. And yes, the 6 stars actually represent the 6 victories. I wonder if this one's gonna get updated with more years. But overall, it looks great, and so now onto the actual skins. Starting with the most iconic player of T1, who this time around got Galio. And of course, since all of these are esports skins, they will be full of Easter eggs, which I will have to research, because I don't know that much about esports Easter eggs or esports in general. I just know the basics. And so with this Galio, in his recall you can see that the Galio is surrounded with 6 stars. All of those represent the 6 victories that Faker got. Below the Galio there is a portal that opens and he shoots up into the stars. This is likely a reference to the end of the cinematic of Worlds 2025. And below him you can also see the Scroll of Rise and Azir's Staff, both of which are iconic champions for Faker. Then, when it comes to the Galio himself, the skin looks really good. I really like the design of the pointy wings that totally make him look different. But then, the Q summons a trophy, the W gives him a really cool golden shield, and he even does the shush pose. Then the E gives Galio nice golden dash lines, but I really like the red crack in the ground. I mean, overall, you'll see that these skins are all about gold and red. After which the ultimate is accompanied with the cheering of a crowd, as the Galio dashes towards the T1 logo in the middle. And, upon landing, once again you can see 6 stars representing the 6 trophies. And so, the ultimate itself is just a nice mix-up of all the elements. Now, as you'll see, all of these world skins also have a special chroma. Now, as of right now, it is not exactly confirmed how you get those chromas, but either it's gonna be a bundle or it is gonna be a purchase with Mythic Essence. I don't think there are any other options. And here, I do like the chromas a lot, because all of them are just dark evil versions of the champions. And speaking of evil, next, there is Seraphine. So, this model is awesome. I really like the T1 decorations with the wings on the stage. And I really like the detail of Seraphine having her own wings behind her head, which of course is also a reference to the T1 logo. Now, in the recall, Seraphine kinda turns into a T1 cheerleader. She's dancing for the crowd. After which you can see 3 stars on the screen behind her that turn into 3 trophies. This is here because of Karia's 3 victories. After which, I didn't really know about this, but at the end of the recall you can see that Seraphine takes off her jacket, which is something that Keria did in the Game 5 of the quarterfinals. And I didn't know it was like an iconic move. Is taking your jacket off a big deal? I would never do it. But here I can confirm that this entire skin just works. Because of course, the wings of the T1 logo are part of the theme. And so of course, the red and gold are gonna be everywhere, but the Q then explodes with feathers referencing the wings. Her passive are actually the same stars that you can see everywhere representing the victories. Then her W turns into a nice shield with wings. But it is the music it spreads around that's really awesome here. Because if you listen closely, you can hear the orchestral version of Sacrifice. Then her E are nice golden reddish flames with hints of wings. And then the ultimate first sets off the stage. You can even see the square cuts of the panels that the world stage usually has. And then you can see 2 arrows that just fly off with some hearts. And I would expect the arrows to be like a T1 logo or something, but nope. After which we should all be ready to embrace the Dark Seraphine. That one looks dope. And so next it is time for Doran and Mbessa. So, in her recall, Mbessa actually references 3 Doran's items. It's the sword, the shield, and the ring. After which a portal opens for the stage and Doran is stopped by a Krug, which is a reference to his legendary duel with the Krugs, which he didn't survive. Next, when it comes to the model, I really like how the weapons fit the armor. The entire model is awesome here. And allegedly, Doran asked Riot to make Ambessa look a little bit younger, but Riot couldn't do it because the way they do skins says that they shouldn't be changing the champion behind the skin. So Ambessa is still just Ambessa. Anyway, the Q then gives you the T1 wings, except in a nice edgy Ambessa way. The W gives her a shield, which then explodes upon parry in a cloud of feathers. Again, this is all referencing the T1 logo. Then you can see that the slashing around her as she's dashing around looks great. The red circles make it so vibrant. And lastly, there is her ultimate, which also sets up the stage similar to Seraphine. Here you can also see the panels on the ground. Then on Ambessa herself, you can see the wings spreading around. After which, when she hits an enemy, she actually spawns a trophy above them, after which she grabs it for the victory. And after she slams the enemy into the ground, you can see, for a brief moment, Doran's face in the ground. So again, this is a really good skin that fits the T1 theme, and best of all, the Dark Ambessa is menacing. So next on to Yunara. First things first, Yunara's Ion Urna, that's the name of her balls, were turned into Adi, which is apparently the name of the T1 mascot, which is a bird. And so all her balls are now birds. Now then, I didn't really know what the recall was supposed to be, but from an interview we learned that Gumayashi just wanted to have her meditating and looking for hope, after which she finds the hope in the butterfly. Anyway then, Yunara is somewhat simple with her abilities, so don't expect anything crazy. And so, she throws the birds at the enemies. Of course, her Q makes the birds split into two and hit multiple enemies. The W then throws two birds that spin around and hit everyone around them. Then her dash gives Yunara a golden trail with feathers. And lastly, her ultimate makes her go Super Saiyan with Gumayashi under her feet. And of course, you can see the stars on the ground representing the trophies. And once again, behold, Dark Yunara. After which, there is Xin Zhao. Now here, the recall represents owner's favorite champions. There is Lee Sin, there is Poppy, and there is Pantheon. And at the beginning, we even saw his tiger icon. Then, it is cool to see that Riot turned Xin Zhao's cloak into the jacket, because apparently that is what people call the owner style of wearing the jacket. After which, Xin Zhao's passive is actually a T1 trophy. Then all the slashing around is given more of a reddish goldish effect. The W is surprisingly not using the panels on the ground, it's just given a nice gold effect. The E is a dash that explodes with golden feathers, with the ultimate summoning a swirl of feathers with stars all around it. Perhaps these stars have foretold more victories for the future. And yes, here, Dark Xin Zhao looks menacing. I really like this one. Which then gets us to the last skin, which is the MVP Misfortune. Of course, this is referencing the MVP, which was Gumayashi. And it is a totally new thing that Riot is trying out, and surprisingly, it really looks like a Hall of Legends champion. And we'll get to that part in a bit. Now first, this skin looks great because we are talking about a legendary skin. Now in the recall, you can see some references to other skins of champions, but I'm not exactly sure what this is a reference to. I understand what skins these are, but are these other champions that Gumayashi played? Or is this from a game where he avoided a lot of ultimates or something? Because there are what seems to be the Dawnbringer Kalista spears. Then there is what seems to be like a Gale auto attack. But the last one definitely seems to be a balloon bomb from Ziggs. All of which should be champions that can be played in bot lane. But I still wonder what the exact reference is. After which the trophy is secured by his dog. Then in the home guard we can see MF on a bench surrounded with her starry guns. And of course there are 3 stars hovering above her for the 3 victories. Now because we are talking about legendary skins, there are special emotes. For example, there is the "It's good" meme. Then there is also the Baron plushie, which is a reference to an actual real-world plushie from Worlds. Then I'm not exactly sure what the dance is referencing, but hey, the panels are back with the T1 logo. Then her passive turned into a trophy, the Q was turned into golden bullets, And then you can see that the passive side and the active side of her W has different effects. And those effects are different based on what guns she has. Because she actually swaps her guns when you use the ultimate. We'll see that in a second. But then her E summons a trophy, similar to what Galio has. But unfortunately those VFX don't change with the guns, it is really just her W. And lastly, here you can see the ultimate go wild. But the ultimate doesn't really change with the effects either. It just swaps the guns at the end. And here it is also important to mention that when MF dies, the dog comes for the rescue. After which there is also the dark version, and this one is probably the best one of them all. Which is where we also have to talk about the catch. You see, as we mentioned, it is not exactly a coincidence that this skin is somewhat looking similar to a Hall of Legends. Yeah, it seems like some of the practices have also arrived from that system. And so, even though this is a legendary skin, it will be purchasable for 200 Mythic Essence. Now, how do you get 200 Mythic Essence? Well, these days, through the gacha. Now, since we are talking about a limited skin, what do you do if you do not have 200 Mythic Essence right now? Well, of course, the answer would be, you do the gacha. And so how could Riot do this? Oh, that greedy corporation. Well, it seems like Riot thought about this. They don't want you to spend a lot of money on Mythic Essence. And so directly after people found out from the data mines that there is gonna be a Mythic Essence skin, which of course made a lot of people panic because Riot are a greedy company. It turns out this time around, when this skin launches, Riot is planning to sell it as a legendary skin for 1850 RP. And a few weeks later, that will be shelved, and then you can buy the skin for 200 Mythic Essence. So this system is actually fine. You combine the FOMO, but you remove the FOMO and replace it with a different currency. Which sure, nobody likes that currency. But at least it is not a real FOMO that is locked behind gacha. We have other skins to do that. Speaking of which, from all the critique from what I've seen, people really do believe that this MF skin is so good, it actually feels more like a tribute to the player than the Hall of Champions skins themselves. And I do have to agree, I feel like the Hall of Legends champions are kinda overblown and overglorified. I mean, this skin feels more like it is tied to the player, it feels more humble in a way. And so now people kinda want this to be the way to represent the players, which is probably not exactly what Riot expected. And again, you will be able to get this skin later for Mythic Essence when it returns. I don't think it will be up all the time, since it is Mythic, there is a good chance it will be rotating in the store. And speaking of the rotating store, there is a very legendary thing that is happening, because apparently, after all the years, the glorious Mordekaiser is returning. Yes, this is not a drill, the one who started it all is making a comeback.